Assalamualaikum and hi. Today we will be presenting about the resource allocation. Before we begin, I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Ani Shahira.
And my name is Jamil Shira.
Firstly, I would like to introduce or explain a bit about the resource allocation method. There are actually two resource allocation methods. The first one is the time constraint project. The time constraint project is a project that must be completed by an imposed time. It means that the project must be completed at specific time that been stated or be mentioned. For example, if the project must be completed within 14 weeks, then the resources must use the time wisely to complete within the time. But the flexible for these cases is the resources. The next one is the positive slack is used for delaying non-critical activities to manage resources utilization over the duration of the project. It means that usually for non-critical activities, there will have a slack. So the resources we use a slack for delaying their activity to manage resources utilization over the duration of the project. So, but if the resources use all the positive slack or they use of the slack given, it will be reduces the slack, reduces flexibility by utilizing slack to ensure delaying is kept to a minimum, and increase the number of critical and near critical activity. It means that if there is no slack, the slack is zero because the resources use all the slack given. So the number of critical will increase because as we know, when slack is zero, it means it is a critical activity in the project. So when all the resources use the slack, the number of critical activity in the project will be increased, or the near critical activity also will be increased.
Second is the resource constraint project. It happens when the number of the people and equipment is not adequate to meet the peak demand requirements, and it is impossible to obtain more. Thus, the project manager will face the resource constraint problem. The trick is to prioritize and allocate the resource to minimize the project delay without exceeding the resource limit and alternating the technical network relationship. Activities are scheduled by using heuristics, which it is to minimize the slack, minimize the project delay, lowers the activity identification number. The parallel method has been used to apply heuristics problem. The parallel method is the mostly widely used approach to apply heuristics, which has been found to consistently minimize project delay over a large variety of the project. The parallel method is an iterative process that starts from the beginning of the project and time, where resources need exceed to the resources available. It retains activities first by the priority rules. Now we're going to proceed to the example of this topic, which this is the question. Okay, Yasmin has prepared the following schedule for a project in which the key resources is a mechanical engineer. Develop a resource schedule in the loading chart that follows. Use the parallel method and heuristic given. Note that activity 2, 3, 5, and 6 were used 2 of the resource skills. 3 of the resource skills are available to the project. Hence, determine the new critical path for this project and new network after source constraint developed and how many days delays to complete the project based on the new resource.
So in solving this problem, the first thing we must know the resource constraint schedule network. So this is the resource constraint schedule network that has been prepared by the Yasmin. So first thing we must know and understand the resource constraint schedule network before we extract the information to the load chart. So as you can see from the legend, the first row stated the ES, ID, and EF. ES is actually the short form of the earliest time start. ID is for the activity, and EF the earliest time finish. And the second row is we have slack SL is for slack, and the middle one is resources, and the another one is for slack too. And the last row we have the LS, duration, and LF. LS is the short form for the latest time start, and LF the latest time finish. So from this schedule network, we can identify the critical activities and the critical path. As I mentioned before, how to identify it when the number of slack is equal to 0. As you can see from the resource constraint schedule network, the number of slack with 0 is in activities 2, activities 4, and activities 6. So the critical path for this project is 2 to 4 and to 6. As you can see here in the resource constraint load chart, this is the example of the information that will be needed for the load chart. So actually the information can get from the schedule network. As I say, first we must understand the schedule network so that we can extract the information into this resource constraint load chart. So the information that will be needed from the schedule network is the activities, resources, duration, ES, LF, SL, and the days or months or actually the duration. So the resources schedule is actually the total. I will explain this later. So there is the answer that have been extracted from the schedule network from the problem. So as you can see, there is actually the shaded region in the duration of time. So how to do the shaded region? The shaded region is actually from the ES and LF. So like for example, in activities 1, the starting for the shaded region is at 0 ES, which is ES at 0. So we fill in the shaded region at the first box, where is the duration is 0 to 1 days. And the last box is at the LF, which is at the day 3. So at box 3, 1 until box 3 will be filled with the shaded region. It the same complies to the others activities for activities 2, 3, and until 6. But as you can see, some of you may not understand how to fill the number in the shaded region. As you know, in the shaded region is actually the number of resources. Like in activities 1, the number of resources needed is only 1. But in activities 2, the number of resources that will be needed is 2. So in the shaded region, we fill with the number of resources, 1 and 2. 2, 1, 2, and 2. So maybe some of you also might be asking why the shaded region have the empty or blank box or space like in activities 1. This is because as you know how to fill in is that it here in activity 1 it states that the number of resources that will be needed is only for one duration of 1. So in the within the shaded region, the number of resources we can fill only 1 because of the duration is 1. Like for activities 2, the number of resources will be needed for 3 duration of time. So all 3 must be filled. So from the shaded region that not be filled, it can be considered or assumed as a slack. As you can see at the activity 1, there is 2 box that not be filled. So the number of slack is 2. Same goes to the example of same goes to the activities 3. As you can see, the slack is 3. So there is 3 shaded region box that not be filled. And same goes to the activity 5. And then the resources schedule is actually the number of resources that will be needed, total number of sources that will be needed in the specific of duration. As you can see, duration between 0 to 1, then total resources schedule is 3. And the resources schedule for the duration 1 to 2 is 4. It's the actually the sum up of the all the activity then and with the number of resources. From this, you can see this can apply the time constraint because there is a slack. So the time constraint state that we can use the positive slack for delaying the activity. So if the resources for activities 1 want to delay the activity, they can only use the given slack. Like this one, the resources can use 2 times only. For the activities 3, the resources can use 3 times, and activity 5 for 2 times. But the problem is that this is for the resource constraint. The problem is that we want to use resources only available for a specific duration is 3. So how we want to solve this? So this is how we solve the problem. Since we want to reach the resources available with 3, so we must use the method of resource constraint schedule method. So as you can see, the starting for the project is with the activity 1 and 2, which is start at the same time. 1 and 2 activities start at the same time. So how we want to consider which one come first? So we can be considered with the minimum number of slack. As you can see, at activities 1 and 2, the minimum number of slack is at activities 2. So we should and we must consider with the activities 2 first. So we fill the number of resources in the shaded region with the 2 since the slack is 0. So there is no empty or blank space for the shaded region. And then we consider for the activities 1. Activities 1 with the number of resources is 1 and duration needed for these resources is only 1 2. So we fill with at the first between 1 to 1 duration. So then the resources available is 3, which is it reached the limit. So the second activities is where the activities begin at the same time too is the for activities 3, 4, and 5. To consider this, we must see at the minimum number of slack first.
We will be choose ID4 because the slack number of the ID4 is lower than the ID5, which is 0. The resource skills of ID4 is 1 and the duration is 5. So we're going to start with day 4 until day 8.
So next we must consider activities 3 because the activities 3 begin first as you can see from the ES. So from the number of resources for activities 3 that will be needed is 2. So we want to fill that where we can achieve the resources available for each duration is 3. So as you can see, if we fill at the day 2 or day 3, it will exceed the number of resources available for each duration is 3. So we begin to fill with day 4 until day 7 because the number of duration that will be needed for the activities 3 is the 4 duration with the 4 duration. As you can see, there is a balance shaded region that not be filled. So this can be considered as the slack number. This is same goes to the activities 1. I'm sorry for the typo here. So since there is still have slack, so the number of slack will be -2 because we use the slack of number with 2. We extend begin the activities at the day 4 because we want to limit the number of resources available for each duration. So the beginning for the project for this activity also will be +2, which is 3. But the LF is still the same because it still have the slack available here. So the LF still the same at day 8.
For the ID5, the resource skill is 2, but the duration is 3. So we will be start the activity at day 8 to day 10. It is because day 4 until day 7 has exceed the limit for 1 day because 1 day of the limit for 1 day for resource available is only 3. So the slack number for the ID5 will become decreasing, which is -2. And the ES and LF number will be increased by 4, which 7 and 12. Lastly, we will be proceed with ID6, which the resource number is 2 and the duration is 2. It will be start at the day 11 and day 12. It is because if we apply the activities on day 9 or day 10, it will be exceed from the resource available, which is 4. The required resources that are needed is 4. So we will be proceed with the day 10 and 12. Thus, the select number of this process will become negative 2 instead of 0, and the SF and LF number will be increased by 2, which is 10 and 12. Thus, you can see from this table, the number of delays day for complete this project is 2, because the old table it shows that at the day 10 the project will be completely achieved. But since the resource available is 3, the delays number will be increased to 2. And then we will be proceed with new resource schedule network, which the start point is ID1 and also ID2. So the duration of ID1 is 1 and the duration of ID2 is 3. After ID1 has been completely finished, we will be proceed to ID3 and ID4. But ID4 will be start after ID2 has been also finished. So from the ID2, we will be proceed with the ID4 and also ID5. And 3ID, which is 3, 4, and 5, after 3 of them has been finished, we will be proceed to the ID6. The ID3 for the ID3 duration is 4, ID4 is 5, and ID5 is 3. Lastly, for ID6, the duration is 2. Thus, since the resource available is 3 for 1 day, the critical path of this project will be changed. The new critical path for this project is 2, 5, and 6. From ID6, the LF number is 12 and the ES number is 10. Based on 3ID, which is 3, 4, and 5, the LF number for ID5 has the same number of LS number for ID6, which is 10. ES number of ID5 is 7. So from ID5, the ID2 must be complete in order to proceed the ID5. So the starting path for ID5 is 2. So the new critical path for this project is 2, 5, and 6. That's all from us. Thank you.